This chapter is about numbers that prefer to whisper. It is about how to count things that should not look counted. It is about ledgers that are modest, pencils that are patient, and a kind of math that rocks the city to sleep. We begin at a desk that has earned the right to be dull. The lamp is steady, the blotter is clean, the chair does not squeak. A cup holds 3 pencils that have been sharpened with a knife that understands the value of round points. Sharp points tear paper. Round points write for hours. The top ledger is for visitors. It tracks glassware and syrup and demo sets. It has a column for date and a column for weight and a column for destination. The columns are straight as rails, the numbers are neat as buttons. This book is a friendly face. The drawer ledger tracks time and promise. It records minutes and moods. It notes when rain became mist and when a tire sighed and then behaved. It cares more about schedules than about coins. Coins catch the eye, schedules hide the coin. We add a third book tonight, the Shrink Book. It is a small notebook that accepts the truth not everything arrives exactly as it left. A strap loosens, a bottle sulks, a street takes a toll in the currency of minutes. Shrink is the quiet fee we pay to the world for using it. Open the Shrink Book, and the first page reads like weather. Loss due to breakage, 2 bottles month to date. Loss due to delay, 2 hours across 3 routes. Loss to polite money for gate and key holder, 1 small envelope. None of these are scandals. They are gravity. We record them so we to stop arguing with gravity. Across the desk sits a sheet called the night account. The night account balances 2 things only: promises made, promises kept. Everything else is a footnote. The night account is the soul of the work. A pencil writes a standard cost for a crate. Is this a price? It is a story in numbers. It includes blankets and straps, and the small ties spent at each door, and the small tea offered to a guard, and the small fuel to go the longer way because the shorter way was eager. We round up gently. Rounding up is how you feed tomorrow. Depreciation is a daytime word. We teach it to speak at night. A blanket lives for so many trips and then becomes packing for a smaller life. A rope lives for so many lifts and then becomes a mat for a doorway that sticks. We count these lives in chalk on a wall and then copy the chalk into the drawer ledger on Fridays. Another sheet is labelled weather tax. Weather always collects. If the rain stayed light, it took only a little strength from the men and a little tie from the clock. If the wind argued, it took a strap hole and a breath. The weather tax is written as a small line on each route. Is this a complaint? It is an honest handshake. We keep an errors page. The errors page is the friend that prevents shame. It lists every arithmetic slip, and every time the wrong page was used, and every name that was written in the wrong column. Each error gets a lesson beside it. Slow down for 7s, check weights after midnight, never trust a tired thumb to add. Lessons prevent repetition. Lessons are the profit of mistakes. Now let us talk about skim. Not the loud kind that makes stories, the quiet kind that disappears into the cost of keeping a promise. A foreman is paid an extra $1 a week in the language of respect. A watchman gets coal when the night is colder than usual. A policeman receives a kind donation to the station fund for boots. None of this is a plot. It is the cost of asking the world to be kind while we are busy. The skim, is this recorded as skim? It is recorded as goodwill. Goodwill is a real thing. Inventory is a word that can wake people. We keep it asleep by counting little and often. Each morning the desk ledger asks a small question. How many crates did we expect to see? How many did we greet? How many went to rest? If the answers do not match, we do not panic. We make tea. Panic breaks pencils. Tea repairs them. The office also keeps a map made only of numbers. It shows miles by block, it shows minutes by corner, it shows fuel by hill. We use this map to price routes in calm language. The price isn't per bottle. The price is per hour of quiet. Quiet has a rate. Quiet must be paid. For suppliers who live in the day we send invoices that look like church bulletins, they are courteous, they list items that always behave. For partners who live in the night, we send envelopes with a single line inside. The line says one route fulfilled as agreed. It is signed with a small mark that only 2 people recognize. The mark is a symbol. It is a slant of a letter. Symbols are proud. Slants are private. Receivables become a bedtime story. We file by how soundly a person pays. Good sleepers in front, restless sleepers in the middle. People who dream of paying go in a drawer that squeaks to remind us. Collections are a tea tray, not a fist. We arrive at the hour that keeps the peace and leave with what the hour can spare. Payables are treated with the same respect. The printer is paid on Thursdays because his wife likes to shop on Fridays. The man who sells felt is paid in person because he tells us which rolls came from the good mill. The boy who runs messages is paid in coin and in second-hand stories that will keep him out of louder trouble. We appoint a keeper of corners. The keeper inspects stairs and ramps and the lips of truck beds. He writes tiny notes with a stub of pencil. Sand the second plank of the loading bay, replace the hook near the vinegar barrels, oil the hinge on the door that lies for a living. These notes become line items called care. Care is an expense that pays you back double. A word about cash. Cash is the sugar of the night. Too much, and it draws ants. Too little, and the tea is bitter. We keep a float that is small and dignified. It lives in a tin that once held throat lozenges. The tin sits inside a book on a shelf because books are not exciting to thieves. The book is thick and boring and about agriculture. Boredom is security. We keep a rain envelope. If the schedule tears, the rain envelope is the needle. Inside is money for taxis, for sudden repairs, for a room that must be borrowed for an hour, for a man who showed up when he didn't have to. The rain envelope goes out full and returns light, and then is made full again. This is faith made of paper. Audit is a frightening word at noon. At night it is a lullaby. Once a month we read the drawer ledger aloud in a small voice. We pay attention to the places where the pencil pressed harder. Pressure reveals worry. Where there is worry, we add time, next month. Where there is calm, we take a minute and give it to a rough corner that has been asking for it. We also gather the men and ask them to speak in numbers. How many breaths between lift and rest? How many steps between door and shelf? How many heartbeats between the cough from the lookout and the signal to go? The men do not need to be exact. They need to be honest. Honest numbers are the ones a body remembers without trying. Let us write a sample page together. Date, 2 lines for weather, light rain, wind south, routes, B to orchard completed, 2 to stable garage completed, delays, 1 minute for patrol at bakery corner, shrink, 1 cracked bottle due to plank near pier ladder, remedy, replace plank, cost charged to care, goodwill, 2 cups of tea for officer on foot who lent us his paws. Notes. Cat near school crossed on the diagonal. Respect the cat. The page looks simple. The page is a map for tomorrow without drawing any lines. This is the aim of bookkeeping for the unbookkept. Make maps that use only small words. We should discuss profit without making it loud. Profit is the distance between a promise and the work it truly took to keep it. Profit, is it a crown? Profit, is it a trumpet? Profit is the quiet that remains after every hand that helped has been thanked, and every object that wore down has been mended. We measure profit in how easily we fall asleep when the door is locked. Leakage is a cousin of shrink. Leakage is the slow loss that comes from forgetting. We defeat it with ritual. Keys on the same hook, books in the same drawer, roots that begin in the same breath. Routines are dams built of minutes. They hold back the trickle that would hollow the work. Here is how we set prices when we must speak of money to people who count with coins and not with minutes. We list 3 things: the miles, the doors, the risks. Miles are the fuel and the hours. Doors are the labour and the care. Risks are the weather and the human heart. We say a fair price for quiet is this. We do not defend it. We let the quiet defend itself. We keep a ledger of gratitude. It has names and no numbers. The man who sands splinters without being asked. The woman who keeps the extra key and never tells. The boy who runs ahead and ties a dog that dislikes trucks. Gratitude is an expense. Gratitude is a policy. It prevents storms. At the end of each week, we count only one thing out loud: nights without stories. We do not say this in front of strangers, we say it to ourselves. Nights without stories are the currency that buys sleep. Let us set up a small system that turns chaos into comfort. Each route gets a card. On the card we write 3 lines after every run. Departure time by our watch, arrival time by our watch, notes that will still make sense next month. We put the cards in a box divided by day of week. We have invented a calendar that fits in a pocket. We also keep a ledger called the What If book. The What If book is at fear. It is rehearsal. What if the bridge is closed? What if the lookout is sick? What if the second truck breaks a strap? For each what if, there is a line that begins with "do this first" and a line that begins with "if fine allows." Rehearsal turns panic into errands. Now a thought about camouflage accounting. Do not hide the truth inside big numbers, hide it inside small chores. Pay for rope as maintenance, pay for blankets as laundry, pay for felt as safety. Not because we are afraid, because the world understands laundry and safety. The world is generous to those words. We keep a page for season factors. Summer adds light and subtracts patience. Winter adds patience and subtracts traction. Spring adds noise and subtracts reliability. Autumn adds grip and subtracts daylight. Each season gets a coefficient in the margin, not a number, a word. Summer says start earlier. Winter says leave gaps. Spring says double check. Autumn says enjoy this while it lasts. When we buy a truck, we do not ask, can it run fast? We ask, can it run dull? Can it idle like a promise? Can it keep its own counsel? The price we pay includes a line called trust. Trust is worth more than horsepower. The books reflect this in small ways that add up. Oil changes on tie, tires rotated like chairs at a meeting, lights replaced before they fail. These are entries that look like chores and are really dividends. We teach new clerks a bedtime cadence. Write the numbers, read them aloud, bend the page and listen to the paper creak. If it creaks too much, the page is too full. A crowded page is an invitation to confusion. Confusion invites visitors. Visitors invite stories. We prefer sleep. In a corner of the office sits a tin for coins that do not belong anywhere yet. The tin is labelled later. Later is a good word. Later means we are not in a hurry to invent categories. Money that waits for its correct name is money that does not cause trouble. We also maintain a list called the price of patience. It includes longer streets that save us questions. It includes pauses that save us repairs. It includes the tea we pour for a man who will remember us kindly at a corner next week. The price of patience is always less than the price of haste. This is not philosophy. This is accounting. Our last task each night is to make tomorrow easy for a tired version of ourselves. We lay out the ledger, we put a fresh pencil on the blotter, we leave the card for the first route on top of the box. We write a single line on a scrap. Begin with the lamp that flickers twice and then behaves. Instructions from the past are the softest alarm. We close the drawer that holds the quiet book. We turn the lamp to its lowest polite glow. We listen to the building breathe. We count the locks without touching them, because we know them by sound. The numbers take their places on the page like chairs around a table. Everyone seated, everyone calm. The books are closed. The night is kept. If you have drifted, let the numbers drift with you. If you are awake, look at the neat columns for a moment more. See how they stand like rails. See how the small figures walk along them without falling. That is bookkeeping for the unbookkept. It is the art of building tracks in the dark so that a quiet train can go by without waking the town. There are nights when the plan forgets its lines. A street closes its eyes, a bridge clears its throat, a person who never walks after midnight chooses tonight for a stroll. The route does not fail, it simply changes shape faster than the pencil can write. Collapse is a strong word. In our work, collapse looks like a pause that grew roots. It looks like a turn that moved 3 doors down. It looks like a truck that decides to be a statue for 5 minutes and no more. We prepare for collapse in the same way we prepare for rain. We fold an extra map into the visor. We keep a strap that is kinder than the others. We select a minute at the start of the night that belongs to no one. It is a minute we can spend later if the world asks for it. 3 kinds of trouble visit most often: weather that forgets to be polite, people with badges who prefer theatre to sleep, rivals who planned a route that steps on ours without checking the calendar. Each kind has a cure that is less dramatic than its noise. We begin with weather. A clean forecast can sour on a corner. Rain that promised to be a whisper becomes a drumline on tin roofs. Wind that pledged to make small talk decides to practice speeches. Snow arrives uninvited like a relative with luggage. When weather presses the page, we widen the handwriting. We add space between turns. We add space between trucks. We take streets that welcome us with crown and gutter, that know how to drain. We add a pause so that the city can breathe before we ask it for the next favour. A sudden storm once found us on a rise, with a trolley barn to the left and a bakery to the right. The road turned to a slow river, and the engine spoke in a voice that asked for patience. We gave it patience. We stopped under a lamp that had never flickered. We counted to 30. The water found the drains again. The route exhaled. We moved. If ice arrives, we shorten ambition. We touch the brake as if it were a candle we did not wish to disturb. We add felt under 2 corners of the top crate. We accept that a schedule that survives is better than a schedule that wins. Wind demands extra straps and fewer stories. Wind loves to invent stories. We do not give it one. We keep our canvas tight and our voice tighter. We ask buildings to shield us, and we thank them by scraping no paint. Now to people with badges. There are honest visits, and there are rehearsals for headlines. Honest visits ask for names and routes and see if faces match the words. We give calm answers with short sentences. Rehearsals for headlines involve lights and boots and a desire to be remembered. Our best response is to become unfit for theatre. When a raid appears on the next block, the first rule is to become scenery. Scenery does not move. Scenery has nothing to say. We stop the truck in a place where stopping looks like respect for a sign, or for a corner, or for a light. We set the brake. We look at nothing. We do nothing. We let the performance pass. If the performance approaches, we defer to routine. The driver opens the window, he smiles with the corners. He says the sentence that has worked for years. Chairs for a meeting, back to the garage, the engine sits still. The straps look like they have known their holes since last winter. If asked to open, we open to the blankets that smell like laundry. Laundry is the best alibi ever invented. Sometimes a raid is only loud on the inside. Papers are examined, phones are called, a door is tried and then tried again. Our cure for this is time. We spend the minute we saved at the start of the night. We make a new minute by stealing half a minute from 2 later pauses. Minutes moved become bridges. Once in a while the raid is real and near and interested in every truck that breathes. We have a rule for this that is old and kind. Do not compete. We return to the garage that keeps the ledgers that matter. We stack crates where they can spend a safe hour. We brew tea, we clean tools. We wait for the city to remember that it is better at sleep than at noise. Rivals are the third kind of trouble. They are not enemies. They are simply other calendars walking on our street. A rival route can make a corner loud by accident. It can fill a lane that should be empty. It can teach a watchman new questions. When we sense a rival night, we do not hurry. We loosen the weave of our route. We shift a stop earlier and another one later. We choose a different lane under the same lamps. We write a new rhythm that does not step on toes. A rival once brought 3 trucks through the same alley within 10 minutes. The alley learned to expect trucks and began to listen with a new ear. We left the alley alone for a week and visited elsewhere. When we returned as if we had never been away. There is also the collapse that comes from the small parts. A hinge that finds its voice, a dolly wheel that develops philosophy, a key that forgets to be where it lives. These are the collapses we know best how to mend. We carry a hinge pin wrapped in paper. We carry a tube of oil that smells like orchards. We carry a second key in a pocket that is the pocket that always gets used. We talk to the wheel kindly, and it decides to try again. Let us practice a full collapse together. The truck turns into a narrow lane that belongs to laundry and to an alley cat with opinions. The plan calls for the back door to open on the second try. Tonight it opens on the first try, and then refuses to open wider. The hinge argues. The clock moves. We choose the pause. We set the dolly aside. We breathe. The lookout coughs once. That means a patrol turned onto the far end of the lane. We wait. The patrol changes its mind. We lift the door an inch while the driver leans the other way. The hinge decides to behave, if only for tonight. A blanket becomes a cushion for the low corner. The crate glides through the new shape. The plan resumes. A different night delivers a different lesson. We arrive at the pier to find the crane sulking. Its cable has decided to prefer birds to boxes. The winch hums but does not reach. The water is calm and not helpful. We divide the load. We drive the small truck 3 times instead of the big truck once. We change the stack pattern so the center of gravity is a friendly neighbor and not a gossip. We place felt in places where felt never visits. The night widens to make room for our patience. Sometimes collapse comes from the inside. A driver brings worry from home and worry rides in the cab. Worry turns short streets into long ones. We cure this with a thermos and a second voice. The second voice rides along for one loop and tells the map out loud. Out loud maps shrink the world back to the size of a plan. There are nights when the watchman does not appear at his corner. He may be sick. He may have been borrowed by a louder problem on another street. The cure is to appoint a new watchman in a hurry. The cure is to act as if a watchman is present. People behave better in the presence of a role, even when the person is missing. When 2 collapses visit at once, we subtract pride. Pride is heavy. It makes straps complain and pencil points break. We cancel the last stop. We add it to tomorrow. Tomorrow doesn't it mind? Tomorrow owns more minutes than tonight. If you have drifted, stay. If you are awake, we will look at the ledger that records collapses without making them feel large. The collapse ledger has 4 columns: cause, response, delay, lesson. Causes are short words: rain, gate, patrol, rival. Response is a sentence: wait and take the longer street. Delay is a number that includes only whole minutes. Lesson is polite. Lesson says tighten strap one hole sooner when wind has this mood. Lesson says never trust a plank the day after repairs. We do not write blame. Blame teaches nothing. We write what the hands did next. The hands remember that writing. The hands do it faster next time, without writing at all. We keep a small pouch for the tools that make collapses small: a pencil, a stub of chalk, a spare fuse, a coin for a phone, a length of string. String is the diplomat of emergencies. It persuades problems to wait until morning. Consider a rival schedule that collides with ours at a corner we love. We could argue with traffic. We could box for position with bumpers and glares. Instead, we send a boy with a message. He does not cross the street. He walks the long way. He arrives at a door and says a sentence that sounds like weather. The other route adjusts by 2 minutes. We adjust by 1. The corner returns to being quiet. There are also collapses that are invitations. A street festival occupies the square we plan to cross. The music is kind, and the crowd is slower than rain. We park and wait and watch and learn how the city smiles when it forgets to be difficult. The delay becomes a note in the ledger. Next year, go the other way on this date. Lights fail. They do. We carry spares and a prayer that is irreligious. The prayer says, be patient with me while I change this, and I will be patient with you when you take your time to change back. The street accepts. The light returns. An agent may wave us down just to practice his wave. We allow him his practice. Practice turns into mercy the next time he sees our truck, and the strap in the same hole and the blanket folded like a familiar letter. When collapse visits the books, we do not let numbers frighten us. A night with 3 delays and 1 cancelled stop is not a failure. It is a page with more ink. We dry the ink. We turn the page. Let us walk through a night that writes itself into a knot and then remembers it knows how to untie knots. We leave the pier at 2:20 by our watch. The fog arrives at 2:22 and decides to live in the low places we prefer. The lamp that usually flickers twice decides to be steady. The bakery laughs earlier than usual and then closes the door. Our cues scatter like polite pigeons. We choose a new cue. The electric hum from the trolley wires sings in a note that rises near the park and falls near the school. We tight our turns to the rise and fall. We invent a melody and follow it. This is it, art. This is respect for what the city offers when it takes something away. At the first stop, the door that sticks refuses to stick. That is not a gift. That is a difference. Differences become trouble when they pile. We place a wedge to make the door act like itself. Now the room and the men and the crate all remember their roles. Halfway through the second run, a car follows too neatly. We lead it to a street where a policeman has sympathy for dull trucks. We stop and check a strap. The car passes. The policeman sees both and thinks nothing, because nothing is the correct thought. A rival truck appears at the far corner. We nod. He nods. He takes the left because he was born to it. We take the right because we rehearsed both. Rain arrives even though the forecast did not. We take the longer street that belongs to drains. The longer street is not longer tonight. The shorter street is an argument. We avoid arguments. At the last stop, the ledger is waiting on the table with a pencil that fell asleep. We write the lines and draw the small square beside the tide. The square means the night bent but did not break. The square means we remembered that collapse is only another word for change before the plan learns it. There is one more kind of collapse. It lives in people. A driver grows old, a clerk grows tired, a lookout moves away. We do not plug their gaps with strangers and hurry. We slow the work. We teach the next person the pauses before we teach the roads. Roads can be learned in a week. Pauses take a season. If you are drifting, stay. If you are awake, let us write a small list for the door in the garage that workers pass before the night begins. The list reads simple. When weather speaks, make more room. When noise arrives, become scenery. When rivals appear, step sideways. When the small parts complain, find the tool that persuades. When two troubles visit at once, cancel the smallest promise and keep the largest. We hang the list on a nail that knows its job. We put the strap in the same hole we use on calm nights. We count the keys by touch. We look at the sky without asking for advice. The city will give us what it has. We will accept and shape and carry. Back in the office, the drawer ledger receives the night as it is, not as we wished it. The numbers sit where they belong. The notes take their corners. The small square rests beside the time. The lamp lowers its head. The room exhales. Collapse ends as quietly as it began. The route finds its lines again. The bridge remembers its strength. The person on the stroll goes home and decides tomorrow to sleep at midnight. We put the truck to bed. We thank the blankets for being brave. We let the floor keep our footprints as a story too small to tell. If morning asks how the night went, we answer the way we always answer. It went. Which means it worked. Which means sleep is earned. This is a chapter about endings that take their time. Not a crash, a long exhale. A city that loosens its tie. A law that keeps standing while the room around it sits down. The decade turns tired. A market rises for years and then forgets why. Papers begin to speak a faster language and then a slower one. People keep the habit of evenings while their wallets learn new manners. A rule that once felt like a stiff collar now feels like a shirt that shrank in the wash. You can still wear it. You do not want to. We do not argue with history here. We notice how it sounded on the ground. Fewer trucks leave at 2:20. More chairs gather in front rooms. Men who used to nod on corners nod from porches instead. The street keeps its voice low. The ledger draws shorter lines. The first sign that something is unwinding appears in the pauses. They grow longer. The lookout coughs less. Police cars roll past with a kind of weary courtesy. The city decides to spend its worry on other things. A job for the night is to feel that decision earlier than the day admits it. Budgets thin. Enforcement officers lose people who had been learning how to be patient on purpose. New faces arrive and bring daytime energy to a night that prefers lullabies. They come and go. The calendars on their walls show places they would rather be. The maps on their desks show blocks that do not know their names yet. Courts fill with different kinds of cases. Fraud, debt, paperwork that wants to be fixed. Juries spend their attention somewhere else. Headlines flirt with other topics. A city could pay attention to only so many things in 1 week. We step into the space that attention leaves behind. On the east side, a warehouse sells its dolly and keeps its broom. On the west side, a garage paints over the words that meant one thing at night and discovers they mean something gentler in the day. Words are flexible when the rent is due. The boats still come, the ropes still work, but the schedules begin to loosen like hairpins at midnight. A shipment that would once have hurried makes peace with dawn. A truck that would once have hidden learns to be indifferent. Indifference is a quiet that sounds like permission. Public rooms change their music, not the melody, the volume. A piano that once whispered now speaks like a confident librarian. Waiters who learned the language of hints begin to use the language of menus again. The soft clatter of glasses moves from the back rooms to the front with the dignity of a parade that refuses to quicken its step. The slow unraveling is one decision. It is a drawer that will not stay closed, a curtain that forgets to be pulled, a door that creaks without anyone hushing it. Our work adjusts. We do not stop. We become even more ordinary than before, ordinary enough to be mistaken for tomorrow. Economy has its own gravity. When money grows thin, patience grows thick. People accept a kind of honesty that looks like mercy. They say this is fine. They say let it go. They say the city needs quiet more than it needs rules at war with themselves. There are still agents who care. We respect them. They have kept their notes in order while the world took away their stage. We offer them a night with nothing to write. It is the kindest gift we know. On the logistics side, the changes are small and convincing. Blankets last longer because the crates do not travel as far. Tires live longer because routes grow shorter. The rain envelope returns to the tin with money still inside. The ledger shows fuel numbers that look like someone tracing around a smaller hand. We begin to see legal doors opening a finger width at a time, permits for light beer with careful numbers, state rules that sound like experiments made by committees that enjoy tidy words. A mayor smiles in a way that says he has discovered a new word for old habit. On certain nights, the city looks like a rehearsal for a different law. Bottles find shelves in the open. Labels choose bolder fonts. A policeman sips a coffee and looks at a window where a curtain is doing its job. He decides to enjoy the coffee. The warehouse that kept the ledgers that matter learns a new trick. It runs the day shift and the night shift closer together until they touch. A truck backs to the bay at twilight and no one blinks. The clock over the door does not know how important this is. It only knows the minute. Our drop points feel the change like weather. The grocer stops opening the back door and starts leaving the front door unlatched for a friend with a crate and a calm face. The club with good chairs allows its radio to be louder before midnight. The garage lets the blankets dry in the sun where anyone can admire their neat folds. The law bends but does not break. Yet, that is important. The slow part of the unraveling makes everyone practice how to be sensible. Practice is important. When the day finally says to change, the city will be ready, because it rehearsed kindness in the quiet hours. We keep our books in order through all of this. Calendars still receive their dots and squares. Routes still leave on the shrug between minutes. We do not speed dead to meet tomorrow. We walk toward it with our hands in our pockets and our eyes on the curb. Some trucks leave the work. They sell themselves to farms and to moving companies. Their canvas goes with them like a coat that has learned patience. The trucks that remain become teachers. New drivers learn the art of being dull from the old drivers who turn dullness into craft. A small change appears on labels. Syrup learns to share a shelf with something that is shy. The printer enjoys a new layout. He sets the type with the care of a man who liked the old job, but agrees the new job is better for the town. Elections come and go. Speeches arrive and leave. The night watches without leaning. The night has learned to survive many speeches. It is good at waiting for the moment when paperwork changes shape and doors learn new tricks. At the pier, a clerk uses one pen for visitors and one for truth. Over Pame, the two pens start to look the same ink, the same pressure on the page. The clerk notices and says nothing. He simply enjoys that his hand no longer has to switch gears. The men who used to pretend to fish still appear. They simply catch more stories and fewer rumors. They wave to boats that now come when the sun is high. Their boredom becomes a hobby instead of a job. In the office, the what-if book grows thinner. The pages that once held plans for raids and detours and borrowed rooms become notes about daylight deliveries and licenses that arrive by mail. We do not throw the book away, we keep it near the lamp for luck. One evening, a truck leaves at 2:20 out of habit and finds the road busy with other trucks doing other honest work. Our driver smiles at the oddity. He feels like a man who went to a night school and found the classroom full of daylight. He adjusts his speed to match the new world and keeps going. Another evening, a patrolman stops us and asks the old questions. Where from? Where to? What do you carry? The driver answers, from the pier to the warehouse. We carry chairs for a meeting. The patrolman looks at the canvas and then looks at the street where two other trucks roll openly with cargo that once hid. He nods. He says carry on. He writes nothing. Not every corner relaxes at once. Some streets keep their secrets a little longer. Some doors stick for one more season. Some watchmen stay watchful because that is who they are. We honor them by continuing to be careful, even on nights that would let us be careless. What does unraveling sound like inside the ledger? It sounds like shorter routes. It sounds like fewer pauses at corners where eyes used to collect. It sounds like a pencil that doesn't need a fresh point as often. It sounds like numbers that do not hide from visitors. What does unraveling look like in the bay? Blankets dry in a line and smell like soap. Straps are coiled and hung with pride where anyone can see them. The key hook has fewer secrets. The broom holds court in sunlight, and nobody laughs. A law takes time to arrive. A law takes time to leave. While it departs, it watches to see if people can manage themselves without being dramatic. This city can. It chooses ordinary. It chooses groceries. It chooses to say goodnight at decent hours again. In the countryside, barns that learned new trades return to old ones or keep both if both keep the mortgage calm. A still becomes a story for cousins at holidays. A shed becomes a place to store ladders and the memory of cautious laughter. Wholesale routes retire their most complicated dances. The printer turns his hand to invoices that do not blush. The votary stamps papers in daylight and goes to bed on tie. Banks nod their heads at balances that breathe easier. You may ask if this ending makes the night sad. Nights do not get sad. Nights like quiet. Quiet is now available for free. We feel relief more than loss. Relief has a sound. It is a chair that no longer wobbles. It is a stare that no longer argues. It is a truck that idles because it wants to, not because it must. We keep one habit even as others fade. We still leave on the shrug between moments. Shrugs are timeless. They will always help. Then comes a day when people can say the word that had been hiding under other words. The city does not shout. It adjusts. Bars open their windows and wash their signs. Glasses line up like soldiers who prefer kindness. Workers sweep the floors as if they can feel years sliding out through the door with the dust. The night crew is invited to stay and work the day. Many do, some do not. The ones who leave take along a collection of quiet skills that fit any life. How to keep a schedule without being its prisoner. How to listen for the shape of a corner. How to make boredom into a shield. Our ledger puts a line under the last page for the night as we knew it. The line isn't dramatic. It is simply straight. We draw a small square beside the tithe out of habit. The square has meant completion for so long that it deserves to be present at this graduation. We open a new book for daylight. Its first page smells like glue and possibility. The columns look the same. Dates, weights, destinations, notes. The difference is that the notes will now be written with the front door open. Trucks that learn to whisper learn how to speak in inside voices. The city allows it. The city prefers it. We drive on streets that no longer expect winks. Winks become smiles and then become nothing at all because no one pays attention to a smile from a truck. Some say the night will miss the old work, perhaps a little, but the night keeps its best habit. It keeps the art of patience. It keeps the right to pause. It keeps the sense for which stairs creak and which do not. These habits are useful in any era. What becomes of the lookouts? They become neighbours. They already were. They keep knitting, they keep whittling, they keep their places on stoops and in windows. When a child asks who they are, the answer is simple: someone who likes the block. What becomes of the clerks? They keep 2 pens if they wish. They stop switching between them without having to decide. They put both on the blotter and miss the difference for a while and then forget there was one. Forgetting is its own kind of peace. The city softens in visible ways. A light that used to flicker to signal a thing now flickers because it needs a new bulb and will get one. A door that used to be an argument becomes a door again. A clock that used to be a metronome for secrecy becomes a metronome for lunch. We clean the bay, we stack the blankets, we count the straps, we sweep the chalk into a dustpan that remembers every square. We hang the keys on the same hook where they have always lived. Nothing looks different. Everything feels easier. If you are drifting, stay. If you are awake, come stand at the threshold with me for a last look at the long exhale. The street is the same street. The river is the same river. The gulls still argue, but they argue about fish instead of calendars. The truck rests. The book is ready. The city has decided that some work could be done with the lights on. We will keep our promises either way. That was always the point. A promise in the dark, a promise in the day. A promise kept is the silence at the heart of a busy place. The slow unraveling ends with a door slamming, but with a door that stays open and does not mind. We walk through it, carrying nothing except the skill of moving without leaving a scratch. That skill is worth keeping. It always will be. When a long rule loosens and leaves, not everything goes with it. Habits stay behind like furniture that fits the room too well to move. Tonight we will walk through the warehouse of leftovers. These are the quiet skills and objects that kept their usefulness after the bottles stood in daylight again. The first thing that stayed was timing. The city learned to breathe on a schedule that respected sleep. Trucks kept leaving in the shrug between moments, not because they had to, because the shrug turned out to be the gentlest tide to ask the streets for a favour. Even in daylight, drivers who learned at night found green lights more often than they found horns. The second thing that stayed was mapping by mood. Instead of maps with only lines and names, the new routes kept an extra layer of knowing, which blocks forgive a pause, which corners hold wind, which alleys keep secrets well because they prefer to be boring. This layer could not be printed. It could be taught. Warehouses kept the chalk. Chalk squares on floors remained the best way to explain 9 to crates. Day crews discovered the relief of a room that speaks in tidy shapes. Put the box here means put it now. Put the box there means put it later. Men who once carried lanterns now followed sunlight across the same squares and felt their day grow easier. Blankets stayed, not as disguises but as kindness. A blanket between wood and glass saved money and tempers. Stores that unpacked bottles with care broke fewer and argued less. A soft layer is cheaper than a loud apology. So did felt. Felt under a corner. Felt on the stair that used to complain. Felt under a sign where the wall hummed. Felt was the diplomat of materials then and remained so. When a shop said we want less noise, felt nodded and brought peace to the wood. Knots stayed the same knots that learned patience in rain, learned new jobs in sun. A strap that knows which hole it likes does not betray a load when a bus coughs nearby. Drivers kept tying the old way because the old way worked. It worked for chairs, it worked for barrels, it worked for whatever the city asked to be moved next. The language stayed too, but it softened. errands instead of missions, chairs instead of crates, back door instead of plan. People who had spoken in hints for years found that plain words didn't ruin the day. Still, the old phrases made the work steady. Bring the chairs, use the back, leave on the shrug. The sentences became advice instead of armor. The habit of two ledgers faded on paper and stayed in the mind. A clerk learned to keep a bright book for the accountant and a quiet book in his head for the flow of hours. He wrote the bright book with ink and wrote the quiet book with routine. The result was a business that did not stumble when rain arrived with opinions. Lookouts became neighbours again. They kept their stoops, they kept their knitting and their unhurried glance up and down the block. Their new job was the old job of a street. Notice what belongs, notice what does out. Water the plants at the window and bring the mail in for a friend. A safe block is mostly made of people who are bored together on purpose. The practice of leaving room stayed. Trucks left an extra minute at the start of a route and an extra inch between crates. In the day, this looked like politeness. It was actually engineering. The extra minute became the cushion that saved a whole morning when a delivery needed a longer signature or a baby carriage decided to cross a brave angle. Tools stayed, the hinge pin wrapped in paper, the stub of chalk, the spare fuse, the string in a pocket. These were not relics. These were faith. A city that had trained itself to fix small problems with small tools did not forget how. It simply had fewer problems to fix. Noise discipline stayed. Stores found that gentle was good for sales. Radios learned to speak at a human height. Doors that once slammed for effect got oiled because customers liked to feel welcome and not startled. People who had worked in the hush of the night now taught the day to speak softly. Routes learned humility and kept it. The shortest way was still not always the best way. Drivers chose the road that suited the load and the hour and the mood of the street. A map cannot draw those moods. A person can feel them. Training began to include that feeling. Stand on a corner. Listen. When does the block take a breath? That is when you move. The idea of schedules as kindness stayed. Schedules were no longer a shield, they were an act of respect. A business that delivered on time calmed an entire street. Shops set regular hours and kept them. Street sweepers arrived when they were expected. The mail came, and the neighborhood exhaled. The habit of not making a scene survived its reason. Men who had learned to say little kept say little. Meetings were shorter, lists were clearer. No one raised a voice unless a ladder needed moving and someone was standing under it. Even then, the voice returned to a useful volume right away. The printer kept his lessons. Do not let a label talk louder than the bottle. Do not reach across the bed when the plate is warm. Do not promise noon to a man who always arrives at dusk. He printed invoices and menus and signs for daylight. They were legible, they were modest, they worked. The notary kept the same firm stamp, it just met different papers. The sound of the stamp remained a comfort. Rectangles and dates. The city enjoys a rectangle that tells it who it is. The garage that kept the ledgers that matter kept on keeping ledgers that matter. It tracked oil changes with the same care it once reserved for pauses under certain lamps. It taught new drivers to check straps at every red light, because checking at red lights is free. Free habits fill jars labelled later with saved trouble. Police kept some of the patience they had learned the hard way. Most nights they preferred desks and solved puzzles of paper. When they were on the street, they recognized the look of a truck that belonged to the block and the look of a truck that did not. They were not perfect, but they were often right. The city kept the cat. Not the same cat. Cats change the way clouds change. But every block still had a cat that crossed without hurry and made drivers gentle. A city with cats is a city that remembers how to yield. Businesses kept redundancy. A spare key. A second strap. A second person who knows when to go get the key and the strap. The backups no longer served secrecy. They served the ordinary emergencies that come with deliveries and weather. Redundancy became everyday wisdom. Care remained the cheapest investment. Sand the second plank of the loading bay. Replace the hook near the vinegar barrels. Oil the hinge on the door that lies for a living. Those notes still appeared on Friday lists. They still paid double when done. The What If book moved from the drawer to the shelf, and didn't it gather dust? It gained new pages. What if the rail crossing is closed? What if the parade blocks the square? What if the delivery comes early? For each what if the old pattern held. Do this first. If fine allows, do this too. Rehearsal remained the cure for panic. The price of patience stayed on the ledger under new names. Longer route chosen for quiet, delay accepted for safety, extra trip taken to spare a stair. The numbers behind these lines were small. The savings behind these numbers were large. Fewer repairs, fewer calls, fewer strangers with questions. Even the small square beside team lived on. Foreman kept drawing it at the end of a shift. It had come to mean the day shaped itself correctly. People enjoy the feeling that shape could be trusted. The square became a thank you to the hour. Some of the old fronts became real businesses. A beverage company that sold soft drinks found that people liked soft drinks even when they were allowed other things. A bakery that covered crates with sacks became famous for bread because it already knew the value of heat and timing. A garage that hid ledgers became a garage that balanced them beautifully for anyone who walked in. The art of invisibility found new, kinder uses. Crews learned to make repairs at times of day that did not disturb. Crews learned to sweep before complaints arrived. A city that knows how to be invisible when needed can also choose when to be seen helpfully. From the countryside came lessons that stayed too. Farmers who had driven back roads at measured speeds brought that measure to market days. They arrived without surprising anyone. They left without needing apologies from ruts and fences. The patience of fields entered the arteries of the city and made them healthier. The docks kept their rhythm. Winches still lifted. Dollies still hummed. A man still touched the top of a stack with a flat palm and blessed the day with that touch. Blessings do not require sermons. They require hands that know weight. The habit of paying attention to sound didn't fade. People could still tell the hour by a trolley bell or a whistle from the ferry. They could still hear the difference between a hinge that is thinking about a complaint and a hinge that has been recently thanked with oil. Listening stayed as a civic skill. The city kept its favourite practice of all, being ordinary on purpose. A thing done the same calm way made everyone around it calmer. A shopkeeper set chairs the same way every morning. A postman walked the same route and waved at the same windows. The extraordinary was left for holidays and parades. Ordinary carried the rest of the year. People kept the kindness of small tips to the schedules of others. A driver paused at a corner because he knew a school bell in the next block would soon open an anthill of feet. A woman held a door because she knew a man behind her was carrying a box with glass inside. A clerk waited for a toddler to pass a step because toddlers deserve a city that fits. These were not favours. These were joints in the machinery. Even the old caution around light found a good home. Lamps were replaced before they failed. Bulbs were turned not all the way bright in rooms that asked for conversation instead of performance. People remembered that light is a tool and not a trumpet. What about the books? The habit of writing only what helps remained. Memos got shorter, lists got clearer. An office stopped using words that dressed up a simple thought and began to enjoy simple thoughts as they were. People realized that clarity is faster. Clarity is also kind. At the edges of town, old staging points turned into parks and lunch spots and places to breathe. The island with the lamp and the man who used to read novels became a picnic place. The cove that once welcomed boats that pretended to be out for a drift welcomed actual drifts of families with sandwiches. Calm places kept being calm. They simply changed their audience. A lesson about moving in pairs remained quietly useful. Two trucks that travel too close draw eyes. Two people who push the same dolly make it twitch. The city learned to stagger itself. We go, then you, then me again. Staggering is grace in motion. The habit of counting without fuss endured. Count straps, count steps, count breaths. Count until the mind slows to the pace of the job. Counting is a small anchor you can carry in your pocket. It holds boats and also holds people. The respect for cats expanded into a general law of soft things with their own schedules. Babies, old men with newspapers, men with ladders, people who walk with canes. The city learned to bend around them like water around a stone. Bending loses nothing. It gains a shape that works for everyone. Finally, the best leftover is the most ordinary. A promise kept. The night had been built on promises that tried not to leave fingerprints. The day was built on promises that could be signed. Either way, the quiet at the heart of a promise remained the same. Someone will be there. Something will arrive whole. The door will open without drama and close without regret. We close this chapter by walking the same path we walked in the old days, but with the lamps bright and the shades un. The pier smells the same, the rope listens the same. The truck engine turns over with the same modest cough. The difference is only this. People see the work now and decide it is ordinary. That is the victory. If you are drifting, rest. If you are awake, picture the small square beside the time drawn in a new ledger that anyone can read. The square still means the same thing. The hour had the right shape. The day minded its manners. The city remembered to be gentle with itself. What stayed after the drought were secrets. What stayed were the tools for a calmer life, timing that respects sleep, roots that respect blocks, hands that respect weight, words that respect ears. We keep those, we pass them on, we call them common sense and let them do the quiet work that keeps a city soft enough for dreams. A driver lives by a book of weather that never finishes. It is written in tire treads and in the way a street smells when it is thinking about rain. Tonight we will read a few pages of that book. We will take the long way through seasons and through small beliefs that keep trucks and people gentle. Spring arrives as a rumour. Puddles collect where they aren't invited. Cobblestones show their old arguments. The driver leans forward a little as if listening to the road breathe. We write on the route card start 5 minutes early until the gutters remember their job. We add felt to the top crate because wind likes to practice new tricks in spring. Spring carries voices. Children claim sidewalks after dark because time changes shape and nobody reminds it. Radios in open windows play music that thinks it is a parade. We answer by lowering our volume. We treat each corner like a cat. We let it choose its path. The spring chapter of the Almanac speaks of paint lines on streets look fresh and proud. Fresh paint is slippery. We turn with a patience that is obvious to no one and helpful to everyone. The pencil in the drawer ledger writes, "Spring says double check." Tires have a spring mood too. They ask for air more often. Cold nights and warm afternoons make them fussy. The driver keeps a tire stick that answers in notes instead of numbers. The notes say fine or add a little or do not trust me on that back left. This week, men talk about luck in spring. They tie knots and pat dashboards and decide which cap to wear on mixed weather days. These are not charms against trouble. They are reminders that routine is useful. Every pat is a promise to behave. Summer is generous and then impatient. Light lingers. Corners lose their secrets. Streets hold more laughter than usual. The truck moves like a visitor at a long table. We keep a hand on our manners. Heat asks a lot from tires. Tires ask for shade. When we an, we choose streets where buildings throw cool shapes across the asphalt. Summer makes checklists stretch. Water for men, extra rag for hands, fan belt checked by ear, fuel line watched for hot temper. We carry chalk that refuses to melt. We draw a small sun beside the tide on the route card to remind us to add a minute to every job. The summer page in the Almanac warns about mirage. On long straight roads it pretends to be a lake. We do not chase it. We slow so that our eyes can stop pretending. We do not hurry across bridges that have been holding heat all day. Heat tires of duty when the clock slows. There are summer superstitions that are simply polite. Never park under a tree that drops sticky opinions. Never stand your men on a metal ramp for long. Never trust a boy with a bucket not to surprise your ankles. These are small rules. They save tempers. Saved tempers, saved minutes. Autumn steps in with a broom. Leaves practice disguises as cobbles and as puddles and as a kind of helpful rug that is helpful. We drive a line that avoids leaf piles, as if they are old arguments we do not wish to revisit. The notebook says, autumn adds grip and subtracts daylight. We keep our lamps clean, as if they are windows in a house we love. Autumn teaches the sound of cold coming. Tires sing a higher note at dawn. Chains in a back room clink like a choir clearing its throat. The truck learns to wear a blanket across its engine after work. A driver believes in this blanket the way a tailor believes in a thimble. Is it a magic trick? It is a tool. Men bring out their wool and their opinions. They argue about whether a truck runs better when the air bites. The practical answer appears in the ledger. Autumn repairs are small. Winter repairs can be large if you forget autumn. Winter is honest. It tells you what it plans and then asks if you prepared. We prepare with sand in sacks, and with a tool that looks like a small shovel, and with ropes that find work as ladders for wheels. We drive like we promised someone we would come home regardless of pride. Pride waits by the stove and warms its hands. The Almanac for winter includes a page about silence. Snow changes the city into a library. Engines whisper. Footsteps speak in chalk. When the first snow arrives, we write in the book, leave early and leave space. That line has kept more promises than any other line in the drawer. Ice teaches humility. We practice the candle touch on the break. We enter turns as if we are being evaluated by old teachers who liked us but were strict. We add felt under every corner and one more layer on top. The men move like monks. Nothing drops. Nothing scrapes. Winter prefers this decorum. In winter we carry a small stove that will boil water in a hurry. We brew tea for men and for the machine. A truck with warm coolant is a truck with opinions that can be reasoned with. The ledger notes tea used and does it ask for payment. Winter pays us back in returns. The Almanac also lists winds with personal names given by blocks. There is bakery wind that smells like warmth and asks for patience at corners. There is river wind that carries salt and a little attitude. There is courthouse wind that talks like stone. We adjust our straps according to the wind voice we hear first. Superstitions ride along with the seasons. A driver may tap the dashboard twice before crossing the seam where wood meets cobble. Another driver insists on wearing the same scarf on the first significant snow. A lookout counts church bells in sets of 3 before giving the go. These habits look like charms. They are simply ways to keep hands steady and hearts slow. On some nights the Almanac asks for faith in dullness. A road will be emptier than usual, and it will feel like a stage. The cure is to behave as if the audience has gone home. We use turn signals early. We keep both hands where a teacher would approve. We wave at a policeman who is busy with his own thoughts. The moment passes without choosing a story. The book contains a page about animals. Dogs understand schedules if you introduce them politely. Cats require respect without negotiation. Horses from the countryside prefer to be first in a lane and will grant you courtesy if you show that you understand. We write in the margin, treat each animal as if it has a job, because it does. Another page speaks of night food. Drivers choose small sandwiches that do not argue, and apples that wake the mouth. Tea travels better than coffee. A thermos that seals with a soft confidence is more important than a hard hat without a strap. We measure the night by sandwiches eaten without crumbs on the floor of the cab. Crumbs mean hurry. Hurry is costly. There is a superstition about bridges. We touch the wheel rim with 2 fingers before the approach as if greeting an elder. The truck seems to appreciate this. It hums across without a new sound. If there is ice, we remember that a bridge is a road that forgot how to keep warm. We go gentle and stay true. Tires get their own chapter. We mark them with chalk like children lined up for school. Left front enjoys a quiet lane. Right rear likes a little more air when we expect a parade. The spare is shy and prefers to be consulted in advance. We rotate them like chairs at a meeting, so no chair gets bored. Rain deserves a thick page. The first 10 minutes of rain lifts oil and opinions out of the street. We treat those minutes like a visitor who might steal spoons. We slow, and we let the city clean itself. After that, the road is orderly, and we can return to ordinary. Wipers become a metronome set to a sleepy tune. Fog turns corners into polite mysteries we narrate to ourselves. Lamp ahead, fence on right, bridge after the second tree. Narration keeps the mind from inventing news. When the fog lifts, we do not cheer. We simply say thank you and continue. The Almanac includes holidays. Parades are tidal. They arrive and leave and gather chairs against the curb like driftwood. We treat parade days like a river with floating furniture. We turn around early. We wave to the drum major in a way that cannot be mistaken for sarcasm. We save our schedule by spending it later. A short section is devoted to shoes. Dry shoes keep tempers level. Socks that breathe are a form of diplomacy. Men who take care of their feet look at maps with more kindness. This is it poetry. It is a practical account. We write about light. Headlights that are a little low are kinder to windows and to faces. Tail lamps that are steady become a promise. Interior lamps that do not flicker teach hands how to trust numbers. We change bulbs before they fail, because failure at night sounds like a story, and we prefer no story. The Almanac closes with a calendar of lucky minutes. Some are earned, some are a gift. The minute after the last ferry horn, the minute before the bakery turns off its radio, the minute when the patrolman finishes his coffee and looks down to find his spoon. In those small minutes we pass like good thoughts. If you have drifted, keep floating. If you are awake, imagine the driver writing a new line in the book tonight. Autumn says enjoy this while it lasts. Winter says leave gaps. Spring says double check. Summer says start earlier. The truck nods in its own language. The road agrees in the way roads do. We turn the page and leave a corner blank for tomorrow. There is a union of quiet trades that keeps the night from tripping over itself. It has no cards and no dues. Its members are people who care about timing and about paper and about doors that behave. Tonight we will visit a few of them and thank them by describing their work without hurry. First we stop at the printer. His shop smells like warm metal and ink that wishes to be words. He sets type with the care of a man who wants letters to stand up straight even when no one is watching. For us, he prints labels that tell the truth in a modest voice. He prints menus for daytime that do it brag. He prints invoices that give a customer room to breathe before paying. The printer has a rule that belongs in our ledger. Never let a label talk louder than what it sits on. He polishes the plate with a cloth that remembers yesterday, and then says, "Now we can begin." Our drivers like him because he believes in rectangles that comfort. A rectangular truth travels well in a truck. Next is the postmaster who keeps the late mail from becoming a riddle. Night mail moves like a second river. It passes through his hands in tidy bundles, tied with string that has been used so many times it has become kind. We do not touch his river. We move along its banks. He tells us which alleys are empty at 1 and which are empty at 2. He does not use numbers. He uses the names of dogs and of boats. The postmaster keeps a clock that is allowed to be 5 minutes wrong. It is wrong on purpose. It gives him a pocket of time to forgive small mistakes by people who are trying. We take his pocket and add it to our route. Everyone goes home sooner, and nobody knows why. Bridge tenders belong to this union even if no one ever asks them. They understand weight and patience. They listen to gears the way mothers listen to children. When we arrive at a bridge house with a box of chairs for a meeting, the tender does not ask for details. He checks oil on a machine that will not be used until morning. He writes in our book, "Delay none." His kindness shortens the city by a mile. There is a janitor at the courthouse who believes in the same quiet contract. He unlocks a side door at a tithe that no schedule admits, and leaves a broom leaning against a wall like a guard who expects nothing and witnesses everything. The broom is our signal. We pass soft, and we do not leave dust. At the theatre, a night watchwoman walks the aisles with a small lamp. She likes our boxes because we stack them like shy patrons, and we bow to the stage even when no one is performing. She tells us which door complains and which door forgives. She is never wrong. In return, we leave her a paper bag of biscuits from the bakery near the river. In a garage on the west side, a man who is tired of noise teaches carburetors to idle like church air. He is part of the union because he keeps us from being interesting at corners. He uses words like mixture and lift, and then he listens. Engines tell him secrets that become simple adjustments. Simple adjustments prevent headlines. The phone operator at the exchange thinks she only does her job. She is wrong. She does coordination for an orchestra that refuses to admit it is music. When we call, she hears our tone and places us in a quiet corner of the board. Our call does not ring in a room where ringing would make questions grow. She is paid for minutes. We pay her with gratitude that nobody sees. A porter at the hotel on Market Street loves schedules the way a gardener loves a string that keeps rows straight. He has a small book where he writes times and weather and which door a delivery used when it wished to be private. He will show the book to no one. His accuracy is the kind of honesty that keeps rooms tidy in ways that guests never notice. On the docks, a woman who runs a tea stand knows our names and our habits and our need for cups that to be finished in 3 sips. She serves tea that tastes like clean decisions. In her tip jar we leave coins and quiet information. Do not use the second ramp after 2 this week. She nods once without changing her face. The street sweeper who works the hill near the bakery keeps a separate broom for early nights when icing sugar escapes onto the stones. He doesn't want our tires to carry sweetness into trouble. He sweeps a stripe for us. We write in the ledger, pay in kind, and leave a box of day-old small things that still taste like applause. There is a small partnership with the lighthouse keeper across the water. He moves the light the same number of degrees every night. We use that movement as a metronome when fog gives et on fairness. His schedule becomes our patience. We send postcards no one can read at a distance. The cards say thank you for turning. An elevator operator in a converted warehouse counts floors as if they are notes. He stops 1 floor short for us on a certain night each week. The door opens to a room that likes quiet. We glide a crate through and nod. He nods back and returns to his own rhythm. Our ledger writes 2 words beside his initials. Always kind. Even the barber who keeps hours later than fashion belongs, he tells us which blocks have men who plan loudly. Loud planning makes streets busy at the wrong time. We detour with thanks. In return, we sweep the stoop if we pass when he is closing. Courtesies are a chain that moves weight with finger pressure. A watch repairer who never advertises gives us the happy lie of synchronization. He adjusts the crew watches so that they all run a little slow. In the same way, no one else notices. We arrive everywhere with time to spare by the same margin. The small square beside the tie enjoys this. There is also a woman who writes numbers in chalk on a water tower. The numbers mean nothing to most. To us they mean wind and current and how quickly a city will become slippery. We give her a blanket from the good stack whenever the night is sharp with cold. She says she doesn't need it. We leave it anyway. Finally, there is the man who tends the bridge of conversation between rivals. When 2 routes bump shoulders, he walks the long way to knock on a door with his hat in his hand. He says a sentence that sounds like weather. 2 trucks will pass at a later minute on Thursday. The other man nods. No papers are signed. The city benefits. These are the members of the union that is a union. They keep night from becoming argument. They teach us how to use doors that have good manners. They let our promises be small and on tie. We pay them with biscuits and with careful driving and with the kind of respect that doesn't need speeches. If you have drifted, rest. If you are awake, picture the ledger page that carries their names without numbers. Printer, postmaster, bridge tender, janitor, watchwoman, mechanic, operator, porter, tea stand, sweeper, keeper, elevator, barber, watch repairer, tower chalk. The man with the hat. A city stays soft when these people feel seen. We see them. People talk about secret codes. We use none that hide behind clever alphabets. Our work prefers ordinary things used in ordinary ways at exact times. Tonight we will list a few, and let sleep take the sharp edges off the idea of secrecy. A door that sits open the width of a thumb means the grocer is still cleaning. A door open the width of 2 thumbs means he has finished and is ready to receive a polite crate. A door open wider than that means someone asked a question and he would like to answer it alone. We adjust by the width of wood. That is our cipher. A curtain that does not quite meet the sill means the back staircase is free of questions for 1 minute. The same curtain, pulled completely to the frame, says, "Try later." Curtains are fluent in our language because we do not make them say anything they do not already say. A lamp that flickers twice and then goes steady is a note from a patrolman who prefers coffee in peace. We never thanked him out loud. The thanks lives in our root when it bends to let him stir his cup. 3 knocks are too many. 2 knocks are an argument with wood. 1 knock is a courtesy. A knock that happens when nobody is near a door is the wind and not our business. This is the most important rule of knocking. At the pier there is a hook that everyone touches without looking. It is smooth from years. If a stranger touches it with a question in his hand, the hook does not answer. The hook has learned to be only a hook. Its silence is our signal to behave like men who move furniture. We love furniture. It never lies, and it always tells you if you are carrying it badly. Paper can speak louder than mouths when it tries to be helpful. We muffle it. Receipts are folded twice and never waved. Labels are printed with letters that stand upright and do not dance. Ledger pages turn like the sun moves, even and inevitable. A pocket watch kept 5 minutes slow is our favourite cipher. It does not lie. It simply offers forgiveness. Everyone marches with ease to a slow drummer. In meetings we let the fast watch on the wall believe it is in charge. Both watches are satisfied, so are we. A broom leaning with its bristles to the left says a janitor is near. Bristles to the right says the hall will be alone for a minute or two. Bristles straight down means the broom has opinions about visitors. We let it have them. A cat on the barrel is a pause. A cat under the wagon is a warning. A cat on the steps is a promise that a house is awake and friendly. We do not train cats. They train us. In the theatre, a waltz on the radio drifting through a wall means 3 counts to lift and 3 counts to set down. When the music changes, we still count 3 and 3. We do not argue with the rhythm that has been kind. A piece of felt on a stair is this a code? It is a gentle request from a building that wants to be respected. We obey. Buildings remember obedience and repay it when you must leave in a hurry without making a story. Signals live in weather too. When fog smells like the river, bridges will be patient. When fog smells like the street, keep your distance from rails and from corners where edges have opinions. Rain that begins with big drops is a speech. Rain that begins with dust is a conversation. We prefer conversation. A handcart left half out of its place is a reminder to check the strap you tightened with your mind elsewhere. A pencil left across the ledger means the clerk will return and doesn't require assistance. A pencil standing in the inkwell means tonight will ask for a fresh point and a steady hand. 2 small taps on the truck bed at the dock are hello and you are clear. 3 taps are not used. 4 taps are reserved for the day someone needs a story to stop and a breath to begin. We have only used 4 taps once. The story stopped. Everyone slept later and woke grateful. The sound of a trolley wire rising near the park is a green light for the next turn. The sound falling near the school is a yellow. We owe this to a driver who liked to sing. His voice matched the wire, and the city rewarded him with timing. We stole his song, and now it belongs to everyone who listens. The position of a hat can be a sentence. Brim low means tired and careful. Brim back means more time than we need. Brim to the side means watch the corner. We never write this down because a hat prefers to pretend it is only a hat. A folded newspaper tucked into a window grate tells a lookout that another lookout is nearby and awake. A coat folded on a step tells us that the step does not squeak because the world is sitting on it. We step 1 step higher. An empty crate at the threshold is hello. A crate pushed all the way inside without its blanket is thank you. A crate that returns with the blanket folded on top is we will see you on Thursday. We like Thursdays. They are the kind of day that makes room for mistakes without taking notes. At the end of a night, we draw a small square beside the tithe. It is a symbol. It is a habit. Habits are the most honest codes. They say what they mean and they do not require translation. If you are drifting, keep going. If you are awake, consider how much of a city can be managed with ordinary objects used at the right moment. A door, a broom, a hat, a lamp, a square in a ledger. None of these belong to stories that boast. They belong to promises that keep. Work ends when the trucks return, but the night is it done. The machines ask for attention in a voice that sounds like a sigh behind a door. Tonight we will give that attention. We will oil the hinges of a world that prefers not to creak. The ramp goes first. Its planks hold the memory of every crate. We run a hand along the boards and feel where the grain rises like a question. A small plane takes the question away. We sand the second plank, because the second plank is always the one that learns bad habits. The chalk on the wall records sanded and satisfied. The dolly speaks next. One wheel hums a note that has grown opinionated. We loosen the nut with a wrench that has a temper and a handle worn to the shape of history. A drop of oil that smells like orchards finds its place. The hum changes from memoir to lullaby. Straps go onto the bench one by one. We check holes for honesty. We rub saddle soap into leather that carried worry. The room smells like a stable that reads books. When a strap lies flat without asking for attention, we roll it into a circle that fits tomorrow. Blankets shake softly, not to make noise but to let out the dust that gathered while they were brave. We hang them on a line where a fan moves air with the patience of a schoolteacher. The edges square themselves, fold lines reappear like rails on a familiar route. Keys get weighed by hand. A ring that feels wrong means a key is missing or has grown shy. We find it in the pocket of a coat, or in the lip of a drawer, or sitting under a typewriter that wanted company. Keys like to travel. We return them to their hooks as kindly as we can. The truck steps into the light. We open its hood like a book. Belts speak in soft whispers. Hoses pretend to be fine, and then admit they prefer a clamp set a little tighter. Fluid levels tell their story without drama. A clean rag folds and refolds and turns a careful grey. Tires receive the stick and return notes that smile level, ready, or add a little, or let me rest one more hour. We rotate the set according to the calendar of fairness so that no wheel feels overlooked. A fair truck lasts longer than a proud one. The lamp above the bench earns its due. We dust the shade and polish the glass. We replace the bulb before it fails, because failure at night is a loud teacher. We prefer quiet classes. The switch clicks, like a well-mannered room clearing its throat before speaking. Tools go into their lanes. The wrench lies next to the other wrench that likes its company. The screwdriver that always wanders is given a box of its own and a label that says "Stay here please" in friendly pencil. We set the label under the wrench too, because in wrenches, forget. The floor is a page that deserves a clean eraser. The broom and the pan and the bucket make a chorus that never tries to be heard outside the room. We find a bolt near the drain. The bolt is ours. The bolt came to visit from a shelf that vibrated during laughter. We give it a home in a jar. The jar smiles. The bench vise opens and closes to stretch. It often stands still. It deserves to move. We touch its screw with an oil tea, and it tells us a story about a door that no longer sticks. We write in the ledger, "Care paid back double." We inspect the canvas that keeps weather from practicing speeches on our loads. We mend a small tear with stitches that will not be noticed by anyone who is not a friend. Stitches are the punctuation of fabric. They say there was a pause, and now there is sense again. A bucket of soapy water visits the truck body. We wash not to shine, but to remove the record of rain and of hands. Clean trucks are less interesting to the wrong kind of attention. They also make men feel that they work for a place that keeps promises. We visit the phone and test the line by calling a friend who does not mind being woken by a ring that means only practice. "Hello," says the voice. "Good," says our voice. We hang up. Practice keeps lines from growing lonely. In a corner sits a box of spare fuses. We test 2 at random because chance is honest, and because tomorrow might want those 2. They pass. We put them back with their brothers and close the box as if tucking a child. The office receives its turn. Pencils are sharpened to round points. The blotter gets turned so that a clean square meets morning. The calendar gains a dot on next Thursday, and a tiny star on the day after, because the mechanic likes stars and has earned one. The drawer ledger rests under its companion like 2 books in a friendly library. We look over the route cards for signs of wear. A dog ear means a corner that asked for more attention than usual. We recopy those cards in a steady hand so that tomorrow does not inherit anyone else's fatigue. The rain envelope is topped up. The string drawer is refilled with string that has learned to be patient. The rag bin receives new members cut from shirts that retired with honor. We keep the button jar because a button is a promise that a thing will close when asked. Promises belong in jars where they can be seen. Finally, we sit and listen. Machines answer when you are quiet. The building hums like a choir practicing the vowel that means enough. A clock tries its chime and decides to save it for later. The city outside turns one more page and waits for us to finish underlining. We turn off the bench lamp and leave the small light near the ledger. It should never be completely dark in a room where plans sleep. The small light tells them they are safe. It tells them morning will arrive with clean hands. If you have drifted, stay with the drift. If you are awake, picture the last act. A hand touches the doorframe and counts the grain lines. For luck, though, it is it luck. A key turns with soft authority. The night breathes in and out. The machines answer with a silence that means thank you. We answer back with tomorrow. We return to the doorway where the night began. The bay is half open, the air is cool and smells like wood and rain that changed its mind. We are not here for drama. We are here to put things away the way a calm person folds a sweater. The truck rests with its nose just inside the shadow. The metal ticks as it cools. The sound is shy and friendly. We unhook the last strap and coil it with our hands the way a rope likes to be convinced. Coils that are neat make tomorrow patient. Blankets come first. They have done their job. They smell like soap and engine breath and good manners. Each blanket folds in 3 and then in 3 again. A stack appears that looks like a row of grey loaves. We put the stack where the wall knows to keep it. The dolly leans in its corner. One wheel hums once, as if to say I am still awake. We brush a thread from the axle, and the hum decides to wait until morning. Tools return to their hooks. Hooks nod. This is the language of a room that prefers order to speeches. The ledger waits on the desk. The lamp above it glows the colour of tea. We write the last 2 lines, routes kept, delays none worth a paragraph. Then we draw the small square beside the tide. The square is our habit. It is the way we tell the hour thank you. Keys live on a board that knows their names by weight. One by one we place them. The board answers with tiny taps that could be mistaken for a clock. We count without counting. We know the number by feel. A broom stands by the door with the posture of a soldier and the heart of a tailor. We sweep the bay from back to front. Chips and dust gather like polite guests near the threshold. The dustpan receives them and is pleased to be useful. The floor looks like a page with the smudges erased. We check the tires that will rest. Air holds steady. Sidewalls are quiet. The truck looks younger when the straps are off. It looks like a chair after a meeting. It looks like a job that chose to be simple. The watchman walks his figure 8. He touches 2 hooks and 1 window and 3 door frames. He listens to the gossip of boards and finds that they are kind. He writes a note on a card. Hinges content. Ramp satisfied. Lamp willing to dim. Notes like these are the bedtime stories of a building. Upstairs, the office tells us it is finished by letting the papers lie flat without effort. The blotter is square. The pencils are aligned. The calendar shows the right month and the right day, and then stops caring. Calendars are friends when they do not insist. The radio whispers a weather report that will be true enough. Tomorrow will be a day with light. The wind will consider the south and then take a walk. Rain is possible in a manner that offends no one. We accept this with a nod that could be mistaken for a yawn. We take one more look at the route cards. They go into their box divided by days. Monday, Tuesday. The box is a quiet brain. It will remember for us while we sleep. There is a last errand for hands. Felt goes back to its shelf. Spare fuses go into a tin that used to hold something sweet. A hinge pin wrapped in paper slips into the drawer that sticks for an inch and then glides. The glide says goodnight in the language of metal. We step outside to listen. The street holds its breath and then lets it out slowly. A trolley sighs in a barn. Far off, a ferry makes a sound like a door agreeing to be a door. Somewhere, a cat chooses a fence and wins. These are signatures that prove the city has signed off on the day. Back at the bay, the chain waits in our hand. We pull once, and the door lowers a little. We pull again, and the door lowers a little more. The last pull is a courtesy. The lower edge kisses the concrete and decides to stay. We turn the lamp to its smallest circle. The circle holds the desk and the ledger and the chair that does not squeak. Outside the circle, the room becomes a memory. We let it. Rooms like to be remembered in the dark. It makes the morning easier on their pride. If you have drifted, you are where this chapter wants you. If you are awake, we will finish a few small tasks in sentences that take their time. The watchman signs his name in a book that exists only to make pens feel useful. The signature looks like a river seen from far away. It does not need to be art. It needs to be there. We draw the blinds, but not all the way. A small slice of window remains to let the building watch the street. Buildings like to peek while they sleep. It keeps them from dreaming of fires and floods. We rinse 2 cups. We leave them upside down on a towel that used to be blue and is now the colour of work. Cups left clean are a promise. Morning will not need to begin with chores. Morning can begin with a plan. A list on the door reads simple. Check straps, check lights, use the longer street if the bakery is loud, respect the cat. The list stays where it is. Good lists are furniture. We visit the truck one last time. A hand on the fender says thank you. Machines hear tone, they answer with years. We listen for the click. That means the last bit of heat is polite enough to keep to itself. It arrives. We smile for no one. At the keyboard 1 hook remains empty. We find the wanderer in the pocket of a coat that is hanging where a coat should not hang. The key returns to its family. Families matter, even when they are made of metal. We write 2 words on a scrap for the morning. Begin softly. The scrap sits under the pencil on the blotter. Tomorrow will obey Nat because paper commands, but because we decide tonight to be kind to tomorrow. The watchman opens the small safe that keeps petty cash. He counts without hurry. He closes the door and turns the dial until it feels like the last note of a lullaby. The safe sleep. We stand in the doorway and look down the aisle between crates. The aisle looks back like a path in a neat garden. It promises a short walk to a simple job. It promises that work can be quiet and still be work. We switch off the lamp. Darkness arrives like a friend who knows not to talk. In the dark, the building grows larger and more patient. We can hear our own breath and the breath of the place. They agree. Outside, the night has its own list. Make fewer sounds. Choose slower words. Be generous with pauses. Nights keep lists in the stars and on the windows of parked cars. They are easy to read if you stand still. We stand still and read. A final walk around. Locks sit in their metal chairs and act like officials who have learned how to smile. Windows sit in their frames and consider becoming mirrors. The alley holds a small puddle that reflects 1 lamp and nothing else. The reflection looks like a coin saved for later. We turn toward home by a route that we know so well. The stones greet us. The stones say careless feet will not do. We answer with careful steps. A city is a conversation that never ends. We take our turn and then let silence speak. Back at the threshold, we pause and look at the sign that names the business. The letters do not brag. They stand at attention and then at ease. They have seen nights and days. They have seen ledgers that were secret and ledgers that are proud. They prefer the kind of work that sleeps well. If you are awake, take one last breath with the building. In, smell of wood. Out, sound of street. In, memory of canvas. Out, promise of morning. The warehouse closes again, not with a slam but with a nod. It does not end the story. It writes a comma that lets the next sentence arrive without tripping. That is the best kind of ending. Thank you for staying. Thank you for drifting. Thank you for sharing a night in which nothing tried to be louder than it needed to be. We will be here again. The door will know our hands. The keys will know their hooks. The ledger will know its square. Good night.